there are some monumental secrets in this game, which if people would listen, they'd get a lot better, a lot quicker. But people don't. That's human nature.
Peter, we're listening. We'll take a few of those monumental secrets if you have any at your fingertips right now. Well, Peter, thank you so much for taking the time. I see you there. What a setting and what a setup. What a beautiful backdrop. Everything, I see a little Beatles. I see a lot of art. I see some golf swings. Tell us where you are. Describe your surroundings for us.
I'm
If
in
you will.
Oceanside. I'm in the office and the lab of Link Soul, the incredible clothing company, which I believe is a sponsor of your amazing magazine.
A great friend of the Golfers Journal, indeed.
Yes. And this has been the hub of a book that I've been working on for 25 years, The Boy Who Rode Clouds.
Yes, I want to talk about The Boy Who Rode Clouds, and it's very cool to see this setting. I've read about it in Golfers Journal 18, great story
Yeah,
by Daniel Riley called The Man Riding Clouds, about
that's right.
your extraordinary life and the adventures that you've had in golf and otherwise.
Mhm.
And it is a story that is almost hard to believe.
Unbelievable.
So,
Yes.
right? It is
Yeah,
when you
I
put it all
agree with
together.
I agree with you.
So I just wanted to start off asking you, in reading the story, I think Dan did an extraordinary job of fitting a lot into a pretty tight space.
Yes.
And, obviously, there could be a book written about your life that could be many, many pages. So there were just some sort of tidbits and hints of stories that we don't get the full tale. And I'd love to talk to you about some of them today. As you read, were there any stories or anything that you wish got to be in that story in the Golfers Journal that, we just weren't able to fit or
No,
didn't
but
make it?
hundreds, hundreds.
Well, give me your favorite.
Oh, well, let's start with goodness knows when it was. I mean, always it's a wondrous thing. I couldn't get from Sydney to Melbourne to play in the PGA. And I'm thinking this had to be about 78, 79. Anyway, eventually, I was like a 17-hour trip. I ended up, a student picked me up somewhere and took me close to where those people had disappeared at the picnic at Hanging Rock. And he lulled me to sleep with the most incredible harp play and gave me an amazing meal. And I got up the next day, and eventually I got a lift with a trucker. And his big thing was listening to the Macquarie Sports Network. And he stopped somewhere and he got 2 Cokes and 2 hamburgers. And I thought, this is it. I haven't eaten in like 24 hours. And he scoffed them both. He didn't give anything to me. Well, so a week later, 10 days later, for the first time, a guy put cans on me and left me in the studio doing the color commentating to the PGA in Australia. So I was on Macquarie Station. I mean, that's amazing, isn't it? From a truck driver to a Macquarie Station. I wanted to say to that big fat truck driver out there, this is that guy you picked up and wouldn't share your food with, but I didn't.
Right? And here,
Yes,
here I am
here I am.
commentating.
Yeah.
And your life has ranged from, starting at a young age, playing golf alongside some of the best to ever play the game and playing it very well yourself,
Hmm.
and it's brought you over here to California, splitting your time between California, New York, elsewhere.
Yeah.
So in the story, we meet you, you're in New York.
And
And
I'll
we're
be going back there about the 27th of March. Same place.
okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you're upstate New York, right?
Yeah, I was the head pro or the head teacher or the head bottle washer at Ives Hill Golf Club. And it was an absolute paradise for me. But unfortunately, it was closed because of the pandemic. So I very kindly, other golf courses let me go and teach. They weren't bad about that. And I live with the most amazing Johnny Spezzano, who is the voice of upstate New York radio. He's on multiple stations and he gives me a home and there's so much love there and so much joy. He has a pizza oven in his kitchen. So, I mean, it's a lot of jollity and wonder.
And that's a theme that certainly runs through the stories, the way that people gravitate towards you and these relationships that become not just friendships, but where you're, where you're living with them or spending time,
Yeah,
where what do you think why do you think that is that people gravitate towards you in that way, that that you've become the professor, that you have the upstairs of the Linksol
yeah.
laboratory? What is it about you that that
I
people
think
find
that
so compelling?
I think the pain I went through when I was 8 years old, being sent away to
Really?
boarding, yeah, being sent away to boarding school, being sent away from love and crying for at least 3 weeks every night, to the point where they would send me to the dormitory because I was making such a noise. And people get
Really?
through that. The people get through that in different ways. I didn't handle it very well.
How did you get through it?
Loneliness begets a lot of different things in life. It gives you independence, and there's a story in itself. The PGA at Royal Melbourne, I got into a tussle with the secretary or whoever else it was, and he'd locked my clubs in a barn, and I couldn't get them. And I think I said to him, "Come on, pick your feet up, get this open." And he reported me to the PGA to the point where I came up in front of a 12 or 16 Australian pros and Peter Thompson. And Peter Thompson told me, he said, you've nearly brought about the demise of the PGA with, I think it was, I can't remember who backed it. It was some big telegraph company. He said, "What should I do with you, Peter?" I said, "Well, I think I've got to go and apologize to the secretary." He said, "That's a good idea." So we both marched in. I took my hat off, put out my hand. I said, "I apologize to you, Mr. Secretary." He wouldn't take my handshake. And
Really?
Peter, much to his goodness and kindness, he said, "Mr. Secretary, the man's put his hand out. Shake it." And everything was okay. But Peter Thompson was a great man in my life. Helped me a great deal as he's helped so many people in the game.
A lot of great men in your life. Peter
Yes,
Thompson, I know
yeah.
Gary Player,
Oh,
comes up in the
amazing.
story and was
Yeah.
a big part of your life as well. If you
Yes.
wanna talk about him a little bit.
Well, when I first went to South Africa, he knew, that I was over there with nothing. He had me to his house at Wanderers. He gave me shirts and slacks, and I was there in the office when Mark McCormack told him that he must not come back to America because his life had been threatened. And Gary said, "I'm coming." And that was, you
Wow.
remember that when the ice was thrown in him and all sorts of. But Gary Player's been consistent to me, for my whole life. He called me up not so long ago. I think he got a hole in one at the Masters, and I'm at a bar, and I hear this voice, "Pete, this is Geddy." Geddy? I said, "Who is Geddy?" "Geddy Player." And he taught me so much about the game, so much about the game, as did Bobby Locke, as did Peter Thompson. There are some monumental secrets in this game, which, if people would listen, they'd get a lot better, a lot quicker, but people don't. That's human nature.
Peter, we're listening. We'll take a few of those monumental secrets if you have any on at your fingertips right now, for sure.
Well, I mean, Bobby Locke taught me that you didn't have to have the big drive. Locke didn't hit the ball very long. I had asked Peter Thompson in New Zealand, actually. I said, "Peter, what do you have to do to win the British Open?" He goes, "Beams down the middle on the green in the hole." And Locke and Thompson were very much the same. Their whole game was based around getting the ball on the fairway. And you know what? Locke always said to me, if you can't breathe easily hitting a ball, then it's not right. We have DeChambeau, who's kind of shattered the genteel way of playing the game. I'm not saying he's wrong, But I'm also saying that let's take Peter Thompson from 51 to 58. He's never out of the first two of the British Open. That is
Mm,
amazing.
that is crazy.
Who's got a record like that? And it comes from swinging the club gently. I think one of the great swingers, we had him here for the Wishbone tournament, which Xander Schauffele was here, and Freddie Couples. And Freddie
Mm,
Couples has got that same smooth swing.
very smooth. So I like that. So breathing, and in the story it alludes to, your book,
Yeah.
which I'm excited to check out. And um, is it in that book that you give out your secret to golf? It
Oh, in
mentions you knowing the secret to
you
golf,
mean
and
walk through to par? You're talking
yeah.
about walk through to
Mhm.
par. Well, I mean, one of the most amazing things about golf is, and I'll give this to everybody because I've nothing to hide at this age, is that I had seen what appeared to me to be a really good way of playing, but I didn't go after it because it was Harry Varden. And what would Harry Varden know? You know, as a young person, you didn't look to older people and realize if he'd won 6 British Opens, he knew something that we didn't. Then I looked at Walter Hagen. He had the same move. Then I looked at Baron Nelson. He had the same move. I looked at Ben Hogan. He had the same move. I look at Peter Thompson. He had the same move. It took me to now, this time at Goat Hill, where we play, to finally put the last piece of the jigsaw puzzle into the swing. So that's
What's the
pretty
move?
frightening. The
That
move
is. That
is
is.
the move is that from the ball.
Straight back with your hands?
No, Freddie Couples has his hand like that. When you take the club back, you take your hands first. You leave the club where it's at. So
So for
you've got this whip effect. So what it does, it unfreezes. I was always trying to be Gary Player and Ben Hogan. I'd read the whole thing wrong, and I was stiff like
uh-huh.
Bryson.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You need a flailing motion because you're soft,
Ah.
because you want the club to do the work. You don't want your now with the technology that they have. Let technology be your friend. You can play easy golf and hit the ball vast distances with this amazing technology. I still use persimmon. I'm hitting my persimmon driver now about 250, which is a long way for an elder statesman. But
Hell
this
yeah, it is.
this this taking the club back like this changed my life. You can ask anybody around that I play.
Peter, now some people will be able to watch this on our YouTube on video.
Yeah.
For those who are just listening, can you describe in words what that move is? Who aren't able to
Well,
see what you're
yeah,
doing on the
yeah.
camera now.
So it's very simple. You hold on to the club. You've got a bit stronger hold with your left hand. And what happens is leave the club behind the ball, but initiate the backswing with the wrists
Hmm.
so that your hands and arms are starting first and the golf club is still behind the ball. And if you notice, most of the great golfers in my time, they always had the driver leaning backwards. Now with the iron is leaning forward. So there's two different ways of setting up to the ball. But certainly with the club and the hands back, Billy Casper did it. You can drag your hands back holding that cup, which is none of what I'm saying is in vogue. What's in vogue is Dustin Johnson shutting the club at the top. Hey,
Yeah.
if you're strong, it's a great way of playing, but it's very, very difficult for most of us. We don't have that forearm strength to hold. Arnold Palmer used to be shut at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's even said, "Oh, I played better when I got a little bit more open." Everybody's got a different way of doing it. The thing about golf and being this age, you've gone through so many different swings. You've gone through being Gary Player. You've gone through being, Sam Snead. All these different ways of doing it. And so I'm
Ah,
just saying, at the end of my golf, it's given me another. If I live 10 years, it's given me another 10 years of great golf. I am playing as good a golf right now as I did probably when I was 23.
do you have a name for this move? Is it just it's sort of creating like a whip effect, I imagine
Yeah.
with your yeah.
Um, no, I don't think you need. I just think it's the
Okay.
last piece of the jigsaw. It's like I saw it when I was young, and I disavowed it. This is
Yeah.
old people's golf. You know, Walter Hagen did it
Mhm.
tremendously. It's obviously Bobby Jones did it. So
Wow. Because I just spent the last week
mm,
trying to shut my club face
yeah,
and really hit the ball with by just ripping my trunk
yeah.
all the way
But
around, with
somebody,
the
with no offense to you, but somebody as yourself, I'm sure you're not playing 7 days a week. So you need something like an opening and closing of the club head, which is easy to do. There's no strain. I think what I'm saying is you need to be able to breathe. You need to get to the end of 18 holes and feel as fresh as you were on the first tee. With all these different shut face moves, it's very difficult to feel sprightly at the end of the round.
I'm gonna be working on something new this week in my swing. Sure. That is, that's absolutely wonderful. But beyond
Another
other
another important thing about the game is I've got the best set of clubs I think ever made. David Graham, Jack Nicklaus. They're probably $10,000. People laugh, but they're so pure. McGregor's. And they're totally the worst clubs that I could play because they're a 400S. That's like a telegraph pole.
right.
But I had to learn because I loved how they looked. I had to learn how to play them. I'm beginning to understand how to play them. So I've adapted my game to do it. And what I did was this is for everybody who loves the game. And this is not me, this is Tom Watson. I took my 2-iron out, this McGregor VIP. And first of all, I could probably hit it 170 yards through diligence of practice, just 3 or 4 balls going up and down with the golf cart to the green. I am now hitting that green 200, over 200 with that 2-iron beautifully. It just took a little bit of application because the people who know, the professionals, would say that shaft is no good for an old man. But I thought, because the clubs are so perfect, there's got to be a way of learning how to do it. Mo Norman had telegraph poles in his clubs. I knew Mo Norman pretty well, and I got to hit some of his clubs. I couldn't hit them. Now I could because I've learned what I have to do it. So I'm not saying people should go to stiff clubs,
Right.
but I'm saying they're all different factions of, a ladies' club, a senior club, an R shaft, whatever they have nowadays. And they have tremendous technology. I play stiff shafts in my Jack Nicklaus woods, and I've adapted, and I play really well. I'm cock a hoop on how I play. I'm
What
impressed.
I'm impressed,
Well,
and
I'm
that you're hitting
impressed.
2 irons at
Yeah.
all.
Yes.
What did you with the with an extra stiff shaft,
Yeah.
what was it? How did you say you taught yourself.
Yeah.
What did you
Well,
teach yourself?
well, that was the big thing. I made my hold stronger, and I reading that book, the Masters of Golf, Altman and somebody else. If you've got that book, you should have a look at it. Have you got that book?
I don't. I will
Okay,
soon,
it's
though.
Altman and the guy that did the Jack Nicklaus stuff.
Okay.
And anyway, that again, that because it puts your hands in the correct position at the top, and then now the second thing is don't try to hit it. That's how you get it. When you
Uh-huh.
take the hit out of the swing, now you can use the rhythm, and now you can
Right.
get that ball to go. But the problem is, as golfers, we want to hit that ball hard, and we ruin all that timing. So I don't try to hit it. I start off, I say, hey, if I can hit this 2-iron 155 yards, let me start with that. And then it kind of cranks up, and then I start getting the whole rhythm.
Now, that is the hardest thing, right? Don't hit it.
Yes, no,
As
don't hit
our
it.
there's
Yeah,
that
and
ball,
and
and
all the
I don't
people
wanna
that
pound it.
all the people that come to me for lessons, they're all of that mindset. They all got this telescope to look how far it is, and they can't even, hit the ball straight, and they try to be DeChambeau. There's the downside of the DeChambeau thing, is because, you've got, it would be like Steph Curry, going onto the basketball and thinking you can do what he does. This is a trained athlete. DeChambeau has trained himself to do this. You can't do it without training yourself physically. Just own up to the fact. If you can get it out there, and all these people can now, 270 plus, if you can hit it down the middle, and there is a thing in itself, they tee the ball too high. If you want to hit it straight, tee it down by the ground. You'll hit it straight. If you need a ball, under pressure, and I've had to
Mhm.
do that. Gary Player taught me that. Put it really, really low, and the only thing you can do is hit it straight or cut it. You're not going to hook it. If you tee it
Wow.
high, you're going to hook it.
Awesome. And I haven't been around the block as many blocks as you have in golf, but I've been around a few,
Yeah,
and I'm learning, and this is wonderful. So our listeners as well learning teaching us a lot about the playing of the game, but there's a lot to learn from you in terms of life and how you've lived your life,
yeah,
and the extraordinary places life is taking you. Um, so you mentioned earlier, you do have these gifts that people are attracted to, that you are generous of spirit, that you have a charisma, that you, a lot of ways you feel in reading your story, it seems to me that you are in a lot of ways unafraid or not as timid as the average person. That maybe that's how you find yourself in these interesting situations. Is that true?
Well, I think it all came from my grandmother. She called me the blue eyed devil. She was the most beautiful Irish woman you've ever seen. And she would always tell me when I went down there, I'm talking about when I was 7 or 8, she would say, it's an amazing thing, Peter. She said, the more I give from my bank, there's more there. I just don't understand it. And that kind of stuck with me. And
Hmm.
in the worst of times, if I had a coffee, or if I could afford something, I would try to give something, because I knew that was like priming the pump. When you go to a well, you got to prime the pump. They have a little jug there, and you have to first prime the pump to make the pump start. If you steal that, the pump won't work. So it seems to be in life, the more you give, giving is living and living is giving. If you have that way of life, it seems that the universe buoys you. I may be wrong, I may be right, but I definitely believe that giving is living and living is giving.
You trust the universe.
Yes,
It seems like you do, and
yeah, 1000%. Yeah,
it's taking care of you.
yes, it has,
Um,
over and
so
over again.
yeah, and that's and speaking in generalities, I would say that the British being known as pragmatists, not as necessarily total optimists who would turn their life over to the universe and say,
Right,
"Take me where it might."
right.
But you do, and I think that that's a great lesson for all of us listening.
Well, I'm much more Irish than I'm British, so that
There
that
you
may be
go.
it.
There you go.
Irish people are the most giving and loving, and I'm sure you've been over there, and
I have.
it's an honor to have that heritage of being Celtic. And all my friends on the tour were all wonderful, wonderful people, like Simon Hobday and John O'Leary and people like that, and Eddie Polland. There was Eamon Darcy. There were just so many great, great people that helped me and taught me about the game. It's a very difficult game because it's so broad. It covers volumes. I mean, couldn't you? You could write from the beginning to the end of time about it. As I said, here I am at the end of my time, learning the biggest secret that I could ever have had with golf. And but the other thing is a lot of people here, they go to TaylorMade and they get fitted and all that. But you can actually have a lot of fun in this game, just with a few clubs that you pick up at the Home Depot, or wherever you go for secondhand clubs. Yeah, you don't need to be that sophisticated. You can have a lot of fun 4 or 5 clubs. And that brings me back to when I played with this young guy, 14-year-old, in Boulder, Colorado, in the middle of the winter, the pro there at the whatever that course is downtown. The, can't remember what it's called now. Anyway, he said, "Would you play with this young guy?" And I did. I had like 7 clubs and I beat him. I shot 69. He didn't want to say it, but he nearly did. He goes, "Oh man, be there tomorrow." And then we went again and we tied. And then the last one, I think he beat me by 1 shot. But I was able to show that young man, not that you can check on this story. I'd be interested to know if he would own up to it. I showed him that low drill shot that Gary Player taught me, and he used it to great effect in that way. And I said, "You're going to win the Masters." He said, "Yes, 8." Jordan Spieth. So it's
Jordan
funny.
Spieth.
In the middle of nowhere, I meet this kid and I play with this kid. But there again, here, seeking people. I know and I love Xander Schauffele and his family and his father. And you don't expect ever to meet those people, but you
Yeah.
do.
Well, you have to be open to it. You have to kind of have, I imagine, sort of
Yeah,
have open arms to life and embrace what comes down the pipe. And if you do, if you put good things out, like you said, into the universe,
it comes back.
good
Yeah,
things are coming back to
yeah,
you.
yeah,
Um, all these folks in the story, there are so many names of fascinating people that have had huge roles in golf and other things in life that have had that have been part of your story. Um, some of the best lessons that you've learned from them. You've talked about some of the golf lessons that you've learned from the likes of Gary Player and others.
yeah.
But some of these characters, what are the things that you've learned from them in terms of how you live your life?
I think over and over again, it's the same theme. Is like you said, if you put out goodness, you'll get it back. And there are people out there, I could name them, I won't, that are not particularly nice individuals. And now I'm sitting here talking to you. Those individuals have kind of like a balloon letting out air, and they whizzes around in the sky and then drops. They've disappeared. And they were selfish people, very selfish. And I've had a number of times, I think I played with Bob Charles in a practice round at the Westchester Classic. I played in that, which was a great thrill because when I first came to America, I went there and told the locker room guys I was going to come there and win it. Well, I didn't, but they made a locker right next to Jack Nicklaus, and I really thank those guys a long time ago now at Westchester Country Club, I think 76. And just Bob Charles, playing with Bob Charles, we played with somebody and he introduced me to the person and I put my hand out and the guy completely ignored me. I've met a couple people like that, but if you're talking about 10,000 people and you've met 2 people that were horses, whatever, that's pretty good odds. So there's only a couple of people like that I've ever met. And they were selfish people.
So we talked a lot about what some of these extraordinary names that have, entered your life and that you've crossed paths with, and the impact that they've had on your golf. What are some of those the impact that they may have had on your life, or when you think back, well, that's that advice or that lesson that I got from somebody, had that huge impact.
Well, Gary Player, of course, has been huge in my life as teaching me about life, not so much about golf, but life. And he told me when he went to Europe, and I'm thinking it had to be 56, John Jacobs and who was the other guy? Peter Alice went over to him, I think, at the Swiss Open and told him to pack his bags and go back to South Africa and get a club job because he wasn't going to make it in golf. Well, he was alone. He had very little money. In actual fact, he slept in a bunker, I think at St. Andrews, with his waterproofs on because he didn't. So that affinity that I had
Hmm.
with him, he recognized in me what he had in himself. And it's an inner burning desire. It's like It's gone out of me. The anger's gone out of me in golf because I no longer can do it. Not to the level that I could. I'm telling you how good I am. I'm pretty darn good now, but I'm not like I was because I had that anger in me, which there's a levels in professional golf, as Ben Hogan has talked about it. There's a level of being nice and kind and playing with people. That's not professional golf. Up there, professional golf, you've got to be a killer to make it. And Gary told me all about that, and I wouldn't want to play like that anymore. That's one way of playing, but yeah, Hogan was the ultimate, and it's
Did you
fed
play with
by
it?
sorry.
You did you play with that? Did you play with anger?
Oh yeah. Oh God, yes. Yeah. That's what made me keep going. You couldn't keep going. I did it for 15 years with no money. I went all over the world. I had a
Mm.
fourth place finish in the South African PGA in 1969. I'm the same guy again, the no hoper, the guy that's not qualifying in Africa. I start with a 78. Next day, I shoot a course record because a British guy, had asked me what I'd scored, and I knew he had a better score. That's how they do it. They niggle you. I knew he'd had a 72 and I'd had 78, and he was basking in that. And then I shot a course record 67, 69, 69, and finished fourth ahead of Bernard Gallagher and a lot of, a couple behind Peter Oosterhuis. Yeah, anger. That's what feeds it.
A chip on your shoulder, I guess they call
I
it?
probably, yeah.
Or yeah, yeah. I wonder who today plays with that kind of anger. Because you'd look at a
Maybe
lot of
they
today's
don't.
players and you'd say,
Yeah.
they have nothing to be angry about.
Right, right.
Right?
Maybe
Between,
it's not a part of the agenda anymore. I don't know. They've talked in the New York Times about fear. They did a big article on fear. Maybe that's closely related with anger. I don't know. I'm teaching, by the way, I'm teaching a young boy now. He's 18. He won the gold medal at the 2021 Olympics for skateboarding, and he's absolutely phenomenal. I've been teaching him for about not really hands-on teaching, but just being around him for 3 months. He's shooting 3 over now at the goat, and his name is Palmer, Keegan Palmer. He's gonna If he wants to be a pro, he can be a pro. That's how good he is.
wow, outstanding.
Yeah.
You were mentioning fear and talking about how it seems like you've lived a lot of your life without fear, but there are moments certainly,
Oh God, yes.
or
Well,
not without fear, but there are moments in your story where that sound pretty darn scary. Can you think of a time when you were the most afraid, or maybe in the most
yes,
danger?
I was the most afraid. I was the most afraid when I first came to America, and I'm at New York Airport again. Very little money, and the cab driver, just the most wonderful guy from Jamaica. Um, he said, "You come back and stay at my house." Well, I mean, come on. And he lived, he lived in this amazing place near to Rye, and he fed me, and he took me around in his taxi. Again, just a miracle. I was very afraid then, but the most afraid I've ever been was in South Africa about 1972, I think it was. Simon Hobday had said to me, "I see you, Beamsy, up in Johannesburg." I said, "See you." So this was Sunday, and I waved goodbye to him, and I got dropped off on the road, Route One, to hitchhike from Cape Town to Johannesburg. And this truck kept on going past me, and I couldn't get a lift, but eventually I did get a lift. And that's going to be the name of my book, is Victoria West. The most lonely turnoff in the world. I'm out in the middle of nothing, 500 miles from anywhere. And I've actually talked to Gary about that because his farm is another 500 mile. Like, if I'd known, I would have tried to get to him. But anyway, I thought that maybe Victoria West, in my limited view in life, was probably 30 miles down the road. It was about 500. Anyway, this truck they stopped, and I guess they felt sorry for me. And I got my big tournament bag. It was a flatbed with wood, so I climbed up. I got my golf bag there. Then we're going along, and they turn off to Kimberley, and that didn't feel too good for me. And we got to Kimberley, and the sun. They stopped, and the sun was going down, and I realized that I was there to be killed. And I don't know. I don't know why I didn't jump down. It was quite a long way. I don't know why. But anyway, I waited and I prayed that the sun would go up and not go down. And eventually I heard a scratching on that side of the truck. And I could hear somebody that side. And I knew they were coming at me. And this guy comes up and he's got a Coca Cola. You want a Coca Cola, boss? And I thought, well, that's a ruse. And the other guy came up with a hamburger. That was the most fear I've ever had. And they took me all the way to the golf tournament in Johannesburg. And there was Simon Hobday. And he said, because I was just absolutely red, he said, Beamsy, did you go to the beach? I said, no, because I'd been out waiting there for like 7 hours in the sun at that junction at Victoria West. And so that was pretty scary. I'm glad I don't have to do that again.
Wow. And you live to tell the tale. That's one of the stories that's briefly hinted at in Golfers Journal 18.
Yes.
There are a few other ones as well. How did you get involved with the mafia?
Um,
Are you
I
allowed to tell us?
Well, I probably won't live, but I have to say, they were some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. They were wonderful to me, and Tommy Jacobs, the guy that lost the Masters, and his brother John, both good friends. But Tommy was the head pro at La Costa, and I went there to get lessons from him, and it was always wonderful because he'd take my money and then take it behind his back and then give it back to me. He was a very, very kind man. He taught me a lot. And anyway, Tommy said, I've got a match for you. You're going to play with this gentleman against some other people. So I went down to the driving range. I was all excited about it. And I went up to this particular guy and I said, Sir, I'm here to play with you. And he goes, No, don't know who you are. No. I was quite shocked. So I went back to the caddy shed and waited around. And eventually he came up to the first tee and the other guys were there. And he shouted over, he said, Is there anybody there that can play? And that was the way you did it. You understand? You had to do the protocol. You couldn't just go up to a person in power and say, Hey, I'm no. So I played with them and I shot 71 off the back tees at La Costa. It was a monster course in those days. And I won. I got paid $300 and I'd never seen $100 bill. And I later found out that the betting they'd won between 750,000 and 800,000. My team had won from
What?
those guys. They'd come out from Chicago to take this guy down in golf.
Huh.
And it was a big, big match all over the country. They were betting on it all over the country. And from that, I was sent to play in the Nevada Open, and I was put up at I think it was the Dunes Hotel. And I was so naive. I had this beautiful room. I didn't realize I could go and I was given the run of the place. You can go and eat. So I kept to the breakfast place. And this big guy came in and said, You want to play Keno? And I go, No. And he said, Well, I think you should play Keno. I said, Oh, okay, I'll play Keno. He's just picked the numbers. I didn't know how to play. I said 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever. And how much? $3, whatever it was. And he came back. The numbers came up. He came back with the money and gave me the money. So it was pretty amazing place.
Another amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't believe in coincidences. So, but interesting thing after interesting thing, and taking you to what happened at Pebble Beach. You're teaching at Pebble Beach, but were you ever hired by them? What was the deal there?
Well, very, very, very interesting story there. My wife and I went to live there, and we lived there. We got a house. and I would sort of go through the back entrance because we were on it. And actually, I'd many times I'd go and play a couple of holes at Cyprus because we weren't far from that. And I went into the pro shop one day, and I had made myself believe I actually was a teacher there, which I wasn't. And the woman there, who was called the Black Spider, said, "Who are you?" I said, "Oh, well, I'm Peter Beams. I teach here." She said, "I've never heard of you." And anyway, I don't know what I can't. It's all sort of blank from there. But all I know is I became a good friend of Paul Spengler, who's the head guy. And eventually, I ended up, when the Japanese bought it, I became the teacher of one of the top Japanese guys, and he came and lived with me. And they paid me a lot of money to teach him. And that was kind of how I got into it.
Wow. The you've seen a lot of golf. What's still, and you've taught it and
Yeah.
teach it and
Hmm.
still doing a lot in golf. So
Yeah.
what gets you the most excited about golf? What still gets your blood boiling, gets you fired up about golf?
Well, I love waiting for those days when you're all powerful and you really hit the ball exactly the way you do, but it doesn't happen very often. I would say the spacing in between is probably 4 or 5 days. But when it comes, it's like, aha, this is the day. And it's all to do with what I said. It's all to do with that speed, that rhythm. If you've got that rhythm, you can do it. But if you revert to that rip it and grip it, which John Daly was great at it, um, I don't think that's for normal people. I think that you've got to be a pretty special person to be able to be like Greg Norman. And by the way, Greg Norman had a little bit of that flail going back. But Greg Norman was probably one of the greatest straight drivers I've ever seen. Other than the guy that I played golf with yesterday, Griffin House, who's a famous Nashville singer. I've never seen anybody hit the ball like this Griffin House. Unbelievable. Absolutely. Shot two under. He hadn't played for 6 weeks.
Did these people just find you, or do you find them? Are you hanging around at
Well, I have to pay a lot of respects to John Ashworth. I mean, without John and Jeff Cunningham, um, I knew John when he was 17 years old and he was the ball boy at La Costa. And he told me that whatever lesson I was working on the walkthrough, whatever lesson I gave him, he became number one and never played better golf and has never played as good golf since. And then we reunited at La Costa, and his kindness, I'm not going to tabulate it because he'll be upset. I mean, if anybody was the poster child for giving is living and living, it's him. But I was able to pay back in a little way by getting you know, retaining Goat Hill for the general people. And John's done an amazing job at turning that in to, it will be eventually an Augusta of the short courses on the West Coast.
It's a great spot. Can people find you there if they're looking for you?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, because I'm sure a number of folks would like to learn this move. Take a lesson with the professor. Now, something else they probably like to learn from you. I would as well. I mean, listen, reading your story, it was really inspirational. Your your approach to life, sort of a devil may care, or trusting in the universe to put you in the right place, and that something will come along,
Yeah,
and you'll be taken care of, and that.
yeah.
So I do wonder, are you a religious person, a spiritual person?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, yeah,
Really?
yeah, yeah. I've
How
seen
would you
heaven.
how would you describe that to someone else?
Um,
The role that plays in your life.
well, the the book that I wrote, The Boy Who Rode Clouds, it's kind of controversial at the end because God is the dog, and two young, I don't know whether you call them priests or devotees, but anyway, they did a whole Greek number on me, telling me that this was against, or anyway. cut a long story short, they put a illuminated crucifix around my neck, which I haven't taken off. I thought that was very kind of them. They thought I needed it. But my philosophy is, I think in every religion there's tremendous good. I don't think, I mean, because we live where we do, Jesus Christ is the one, and without that you can't enter into heaven. Um, I'm not going to argue that. I'm going to say that I believe in Jesus, but also I believe in a lot of the other philosophies of life. So it's a
Mhm.
little bit broader. So I'm not putting any religion down, but I do know there's a heaven. I know that because I've seen it, and I know that kindness begets kindness. So what's going
Yeah.
on? Yes, what's going on right now will be repaid in full. You can't do that. It may take 20 years, but you will not last on this planet doing bad. You can't. Gandhi said it. It has its time. Evil has its time, but unfortunately, it doesn't last. My father was chosen by Churchill because he was Irish to be one of the prosecuting attorneys, or on the not a prosecuting attorney, but on the prosecutorial team at Nuremberg. And the stories that he told, he said this will never happen again. Well, poor dad, he was wrong. But that evil only lasts for a while, and then it's kind of like a pimple. It comes up again. It has to be squashed and taken out. That's the world that we live in. Now, why it is, I don't know, but it is there.
You've seen heaven.
Yes,
Tell me about it.
it was no particular day. It was no particular hour. It was going into the morning hours. I'm saying it's probably 1 o'clock in the morning. I woke up and I saw this speck in the window. It was bright. And I went to look at it, and it was so small. But for a very, very short time, I saw through it to an open space so massive, it's hard to describe. It was so massive and so peaceful and so beautiful and so many colors. And I think that's what you get if you were in my studio, the colors. That's the big thing in the Boy Road Clouds. So yes, I saw it, and I have no illusion to the fact that there is a better place than this.
My goodness. Wow. Um,
It was a pimple. It was so small,
yeah.
but it was so small. It was so big, and you could see through to another side. It's like
Mm.
like a curtain was drawn for a fraction of a second. Didn't last very long.
It's a beautiful. I love that. I had a professor who used to talk about the whole universe fitting on the head of a pin, and that being a theme and sort of different literatures that we talk about, and sort of we can go. Wait, I don't want to go too far down that
Yeah,
path, but
yeah,
this notion of finding the infinite and seeing
yes,
a glimpse of it
yes.
is a powerful, impossibly powerful and amazing thing.
And
So,
the great thing about golf is it presents us all the time with most of the good of the world.
mhm,
Don't you think? I don't think there's a lot of bad that comes out of golf.
a lot of good, a lot of good,
Yeah.
and a lot of those, and a lot of opportunities for those moments to experience something bigger than yourself.
Yes, exactly.
And you've experienced a lot of them, between the people that have walked into your life, between the situations you found yourself in, and things that have come along to carry you along to the next adventure. Or honestly, it's not just adventures that you're having. You're giving a lot of gifts to people along the way, whether it's your knowledge, your generosity of spirit. You're giving us a gift by talking us to us here today. What would you say to people who aren't able to live life with the same optimism or courage or open-mindedness or willingness that you do? There are a lot of us, especially coming out of a pandemic, that are anxious, that are afraid, that are closed up, closed off to the world. That's the opposite of how you've lived, and you've been rewarded for that. What would you say to people in that situation?
That if you're going through dark times, you're a very lucky person because I can tell you I might have gone through 100 of those that you're going through. Now, I don't know whether it was Tiger Woods said it. I may be misquoting him. I'm sorry, Tiger, if I am. But I think Tiger alluded to the fact that it's the person that can take the most pain that succeeds. And I think that's probably in there somewhere with me, that if you can stand up, if you can stay in that flame long enough, it will burn itself out and you'll go through to the next level. You've burnt the dross off. So, what I say to people that have got fear or that, money problems, my goodness, I can give you a lecture on that. Having nothing is a great place to be because you only have one place to go, and that's up. You won't stay in that place. That's not the universe. The universe abhors a vacuum. It wants you to succeed. Every living person on this planet is a part of the cog, is a part of everybody. You can't be a Tiger Woods without 10,000 people behind you turning the machinery. You can't be a Seth Curry without the teammates. So if you view yourself as nothing, that's completely wrong, because every human being, every person with a spark of life inside them is as important as, and Jack Nicklaus would say this, as Jack Nicklaus. And by the way, thank you, Jack. If Jack's watching this, thank you so much. I can't believe what you did for me. About a year or so, maybe longer, I had got 2 books and I sent them to Jack Nicklaus with a return envelope to send to John Ashworth for his birthday. Well, I never saw them. And like John, a great story with John cursing Bill Murray because he hadn't heard from him. Bill Murray had lost his telephone. But Jack, I'm going, God damn it. I really believed in you, Jack, and you let me down. And I'm sitting in John's office and I see these 2 books. They were very familiar. There you were. Jack Nicklaus had signed them both. So, Jack, thank you so much. I've met you on a number of occasions. You're one of the great people on this planet. You've helped so many people. You helped me. You were always kind to me when you met me. And so I'm just saying, hang on. Know that the sun will come up again.
Indeed, it will. I can't think
Yeah.
of a sort of I can't think of a better note to leave things on. But I do have to ask you, how's the book coming? What's going on? The story was written a while ago.
Yes.
Any progress on that front? Because it left us, the story certainly left us all excited about. We want to read this.
Okay, we in New York we did the audio book with sounds and doors opening and
Really?
yes, the whole thing. And Matt Janella, who works just around the corner, he said he'd love me to do the audio book for his son, Bandon, and so that's where we're going to do. We're going to record it here and then knit the two of those audio books together. So that's the beginning. It's out, being looked at by HarperCollins, and Disney has intimated it's interested, but nothing's firm until there's money in the bank. Golf Channel wants me to do this 6-episode thing of going across country with cameras and visiting different places, and it's great. I listen to everybody, but nothing ever happens until somebody puts a check in your bank.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
Anyone that
yeah,
works in the
yeah.
any creative field knows.
And to all
that.
those people, I'm ready. I'm here, but I will be leaving the 25th or 27th of March, no matter what. It doesn't matter to me. They can make up their minds. They could chase me.
Well, somebody needs to give you a camera and follow you back across the country on your way back to New York, because of the people that you find, the
Yes.
people that gravitate into your universe.
Yes.
You have that magnetic pull, and there are people like that, and you are at the top of that list for me, for sure. So, Peter, I can't thank you enough for the time.
Fantastic.
Thank you
Really
for all
nice to meet you.
Wonderful to meet you. Hopefully our paths cross. Who knows? Knowing the way your life goes, I'm sure we're going to meet at some point, and can share some more
Would
stories
you
then.
would you say hello to my friend Xander when you see him at the PGA?
Yeah, I'll be
Wish
at the
him all.
Masters. I will tell
Oh,
Xander.
yeah,
I'll find him there, and I'll tell him
yeah,
that Peter
yeah.
sends
Sends
his
his
best.
best. He'll probably win this year.
All right.
All
You
right,
know what? I'm not going to bet against you, so I'm not going to bet against Xander.
right.
More great advice. Peter, thank you so much. Have an awesome day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.